said that, dude. Like, there's no way.
You've said that. You're the one who said that. I think it is completely unprecedented. We don't know what the production department of the show is, what their motivations are. Like that's completely unknown.
There's just no.
So there's that. I mean, we see again. There has been people who have been pretty hidden in the edit. Jordan in Dirty 30 was very hidden in the edit at the beginning of the season. Cara Maria and Vendetta said multiple points at the season where she was barely involved. I know this is a completely different situation.
We're 75. We're like 80% of the way through the season.
I think that I think he still has a chance. I just do. I think from a competitive standpoint, from just the fact that we don't know how they're going to be.
Welcome to the Challenge Chronicles. I'm Devin Jordan. I'm with Rob McIntyre and Trace Armstrong. We are here to discuss the Challenge USA Season 1, Episode 7. If you'd like to become a patron and get one bonus episode per week, you can go to patreon.com/the Challenge Chronicles. Sign up for $4 per month. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love if you subscribed and liked the video. Episode 7. What did we think of this episode? General thoughts?
I thought another great episode. I thought this one very much in contention for one of the best episodes of the season.
Maybe one of the most creative missions they've ever had on the show. Like leaning into Mario Kart and Mario Party basically as part of this mission was fucking brilliant. And I thought this was a daily that I would pay money to go do. Like, please let me go do this.
So I didn't think this episode was that great, and I thought this this mission was one of the all-time worst missions. I thought this mission was
You're insane.
Absolutely fucking terrible, dude.
You're insane.
Like every single person except for one pair lost because their car broke down. No one got eliminated except for one pair the way that the producers intended them to get eliminated. Everyone got eliminated because they crashed their own cars.
No. That's not entire. That's true, but they said in the rules that your car breaks down, you're out, and if you run over the oil barrels, that will trigger the car to stop working. The only ones that were just complete idiots were Leo when he crashed into the dirt and got the car wedged. That was just him being. He was the only one that to me was the dumb elimination. Everybody else was within the confines. If you notice, they ran over the oil barrel, and they even said in the rules, like, that will stop your car. So, like, I don't have a problem with that.
I didn't really feel either way about the mission, to be honest. I thought it was efficient in the sense that at least, like, hey, everybody's going at once. There's not taking turns. As we do that to me, at least is sort of like a pass-fail metric for a mission. And it emphasized communication, which is really interesting to watch. I do understand what Devin said, though. I mean, somebody could have basically just sat parked for a while, and they would have ended up in the top
the entire time. The entire time, pretty much. That's all you had to do. And on top of that, it was impossible to tell how well anyone was doing. I don't know if they just chose to not film this in a way that would communicate to the audience how each pair was doing, but because they just isolated in on each pair as they went through the mission, you really didn't have any frame of reference for how well their performance was doing compared to the other cast members.
Yeah, they didn't make the cars very distinctive either. They got a little colored stripe on it, but that was pretty hard to keep up with who was what color and stuff. I mean, they could have just had like a graphic on the side or something, right? Where it just says, oh, Dom and Cayla, or how many balloons they have left, like they do in Mario Kart. Like, it feels like that could have been done pretty easily.
I mean, they could do that for a lot of missions and a lot of finals, and they choose not to.
They don't like to do that, though. They don't want to pay the graphics guy.
I don't get why. Honestly, it makes no sense to me why they don't do that. Because all you have to do is even if you've decided, even if they deem that there's some sort of risk with the information that they have on the graphic diverging from what they're trying to tell from a storyline perspective, just wait until you have the episode completely edited and then have that person go in and put the graphic on top of it so there's no type of confusion. I don't know. I think they could definitely improve the overall product if they do that. It's not difficult at all.
Yeah, like that's a very, very, very low grade.
I feel weird because usually I'm not positive Paul. I literally had no problem with anything in the mission. It's so weird that I'm the one guy that's like, usually it's Rob that's like, I didn't think it was that bad. And instead you two were
like, and I still don't think it was bad. Like, I thought it was good. I mean, it just... I definitely understand what Devin's saying, where it just functionally, like, just everybody's cars break down. That's not the best thing for me. Well, I think it would have been much better. They just need to spread out the air arena and not have that really be a factor and just have them keep going until they eventually hit something.
Maybe my bar is just so low for the show at this point, whether it's All Stars or the main show or USA or Champs versus Pros or Your Mom versus 100. Like, maybe my bar is just so low at this point that, like, this stuff just doesn't faze me anymore.
Because, yeah, I don't know. I think this definitely falls into the category of missions that this is much more enjoyable to participate in as an actual cast member than it is for someone from a viewing perspective to consume.
Well, I think you might be kind of under an island with this, to be honest. Like, most of the commentary I saw on the mission was pretty positive.
Yeah,
dude,
like,
this one
even
sucked.
Pat Mayo thought this was a great eliminate. Even Pat Mayo, when we were texting, said this was a good daily challenge.
So my two fundamental issues, just to summarize it, is I had no idea what the fuck was going on, right? It was pretty much just whatever they told you. You couldn't tell how well anyone was doing. And two, everyone's car just broke down except for one person. How was that competitive? You could have literally, Rob, like you said, I didn't think about it until now, until you said it. You're right. You could have literally just sat in park and you probably would have won, because how many balloons left did Dom and Cayla have at the end?
3.
They had a couple. I don't think you would have won. I think you would have. So
you may have had more than all the other people. All you had to do was like park your car so your balloons were facing the edge of the arena, and no one would have been able to get back there. Yeah,
just reverse a little bit. Yeah. No, I certainly understand that it was flawed. Like, I very much agree with that. I didn't think it was bad. From a viewing perspective.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, like, Devin, we can always say these things like, oh, they could just sit in the park, oh, they could do X, or they could just do Y. They also don't tell us 95% of the rules. Like, they could tell them you're not allowed to do that, and then we don't get shown that.
Still, that really doesn't change the fact, even if they tell you can't do that, that doesn't change the fact that everyone would probably still be eliminated just because their cars broke down. I don't think that's what you want to
see. They broke down because the part of it is it was part demolition derby, and if your car breaks down, it's because you either hit too many things or ran over something. Like, that is just bad communication between the person giving directions and the person driving. Like, I have no problem with that aspect of the mission whatsoever.
I just don't think it's enjoyable that people keep losing because it's their own fault. Right? I don't know.
Well, what do you mean? I completely disagree with that. Like, you lose because it's your own fault. You're an idiot. You should lose.
Because you just keep crashing your car. Because it's pretty much just who can drive around blindfolded. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. That's not enjoyable to watch.
Well, I mean, like,
I must be weird then. I enjoyed it.
How do you feel about, like, the Inferno 2 mission where they have to, like, look at the thing and match it up correctly? You like that or no?
Which
one? What I'm talking about?
No.
Explain more. The camera themed mission.
The what theme mission?
The camera theme mission from Inferno 2, where they have the room that they have to recreate after, like, Dan walks into it. Dan walks into the room and sees what everything's. Well, I mean, like, that's not like, oh, like, testing some super athletic competitive skill set. You want to test a variety of things.
Who's in that? Are you the Inferno 2 elimination?
I'm just talking about how, like, not every mission can be like some American Ninja Warrior spin-off. Like, you're gonna have.
Yeah, I know, and I'm fine with that.
But who can drive around blindfolded? Yeah, that's a fun, like, all right, cool, let's throw this gimmicky mission out there.
I don't know. I didn't like it. Let's move on. Let's talk about Dom's decision.
We shouldn't have crossed him off. You were right, by the way. We should.
Dude, I think he might win.
Cross anybody off.
I think he might win.
Cross anybody off. I'm with Devin that he might win, but I also don't think. Like, on this Sky set, it's a bunch of jabronis at this point. It's like Tyson, Danny, and everybody else is like somebody we thought was a screw job heading into this.
3 weeks ago at like midnight Pacific time, I texted you and I said, or both of you, and I said, I think Dom can win because of how much they were sprinkling him into all of the different conversations when he didn't need to be there. He was getting confessionals in weeks where he really wasn't involved with the storyline and getting visibility. Now he wins, and they want to make him look like some strategic mastermind. What did we think of Dom's decision to put in Kylan and Kylan and Kira?
Yeah.
Compared to his other options, I thought this was a bad move, and I think it just happened to work out for Dom. That's my opinion.
It's really difficult for me because I can very much see both sides of it, where if there's been this whole winners thing that we've talked about where all the winners are protecting each other at this point, this is the first time I think that we've actually had somebody go against somebody who's won so far. At a certain point, the numbers will work out. You have to do that. But Dom was the first one to make that push. We should say Dom and Cayla because, I mean, she was there too. She was clearly a motivating factor behind this decision. So, I mean, if he had played nice with Kylan and Tyson, like, I mean, there seems to be a lane for him to just that would have been there for him to just ride with them and then he basically gets to make the final. But at that point, he makes the final against Tyson, Kylan, and all these other really good players. And also, like, I mean, he still could be picked off at some point.
And on top of that, if he doesn't throw in Kylan, right, he has some type of relationship with Kylan. There's some potential alliance there. Who knows how strong that would be. Plus, if he threw in one of the males that wanted to get thrown into elimination, he would also have a potential alliance with whoever he decided to do that favor for, right? So he's gaining two stronger members of an alliance. He has two stronger agreements. This worked out absolute best case scenario for him, where Kylan goes home. If Kylan comes back, he's going to have it out for Dom. All of the winners will have it out for Dom, and they still do now. And he would have the relationship of whoever he did the favor for to put them into elimination. I don't really
Who
get
the people that wanted to go in.
From what we've heard, it was Ben and Danny, and Ben, Danny, Sarah, and potentially more.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that Dominic, it worked out in his favor perfectly. Let me say that. Like, getting rid of Kylan helps him tremendously in terms of if he makes the final winning, because Kylan has been really good compared to everyone else at this point, aside from Tyson and Ben of the world.
Yeah. I would think one quick thing to break in, Trace, and then you can continue, is I think it makes a lot of sense just to help him make the final, just because that's a good competitor gone. We keep bad competitors around. That's less of a chance of him losing.
Yeah,
correct.
And that's where I was going, is it worked out in his favor, but I felt like it was a bad decision because he was going in against Leo.
Yeah.
That was
the other thing.
That was what was fucking crazy about it. When you've got Leo sitting there, but now Leo's won, 2-3 eliminations?
He's had
Would
2.
we really thought at the beginning of this season, and I even told you guys, I didn't think Leo had a shot in hell in this game. If you'd have told me he's going to be 3 elimination wins at this point, I would have said you were crazy. But here he is with 3 wins, and Alyssa is thankfully still in the game. I'm shocked that Kylan didn't win this, just because Leo, being so much smaller, was able to. They somehow were able to hoist those medicine balls up and win this thing. Like I
How
was
heavy
shocked.
were those things?
25 pounds.
That should have been that hard, right?
That was the
other. No, when you think about like, all right, so I use medicine balls a lot in CrossFit, and thank God I'm about to start going back, so I will be less fat here in about 6 months. 25-pound medicine balls are not that heavy until you start to get fatigued. So when you do like wall balls and you're pushing the ball up and it's going 8-10 feet in the air and you're catching it, squatting, going up and down, as you get fatigued, that thing feels like it's 100 pounds. And when you've got a chain wrapped around it and they're not even on a solid base, like these women were standing on top of 2 other dudes who were shaking and doing all that stuff. Like, that was not easy. Like, really not easy.
I think what you just brought up, Trace, is the other aspect of this that does not make this a good decision, that Dom got to the elimination, saw what the elimination was, and decided to put Kylan and Kira in against Leo and Alyssa in a mission where it really did come down to height. We saw that Kylan and Kira...
Height and strength.
Height and strength,
I don't
right?
think so. I think it's whoever stumbled into the right trivia questions. Like we saw,
hold on.
Put up the balls first,
right? So they put up all the balls first. I think if you gave them, if you took their true talent at trivia, I would probably say that Kylan and Kira are probably the better pair than the other two, and I would say that they're better at. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that is the pivotal part to this. That's what the pivotal part to this specific elimination was. But I do think a large part of it is your height and your ability to reach up there and pull the balls up. And it seemed like Kylan and Kira were able to do that much more quickly than Leo and Alyssa. I think both teams should have had the same questions. I think that to make this a true, like, to make this more fair, and I know that like fair is completely out the window when we're talking about the challenge. That's like a complete foreign concept. Yeah. I think, like, what's the harm in having the same questions for them? Like, what's the issue with that?
The other team can just hear the other answer. That's the only thing.
That's the issue. But you also can just be quiet about it. You don't have to yell.
Or you can try and throw them off, right? There's some gameplay.
There's plenty of strategy there. And it's not because, like, they are told like you have to read the question out loud. But reading the question out loud doesn't really matter. Like they're both going to see the same questions eventually. You just have
you
to
could say the
four.
answer
Like you
is
say,
7.
violated their
The
partner.
answer is 7, and then go grab the 4 ball.
Yeah,
that's way more interesting. I feel like.
I'm with you that they should have done that. Who knows why they don't? I think they were probably concerned about them yelling answers across the line. But it's also like people do that anyways in like missions all the time. Like that happens every other episode.
When they were talking about how many husbands Madonna's had, and they said 6 or 7, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like 7 husbands?
This was my biggest beef with this trivia, okay? Every question, while how many albums does Adele has is obscure, don't get me wrong. But how many husbands has Madonna had? What the fuck kind of trivia question is that on the challenge? Do any of these people even know who Madonna is? Like, Madonna hasn't been relevant in over a decade.
If you ask people my age, what's Madonna's profession? You're getting like 50-50.
You're getting an answer all over the board because Madonna was last relevant. You're going to get like
Secretary of State as one of your most common answers.
Relevancy is a real question here because like the last Madonna song and album I remember is Music, and that album came out in the year 2000 or 2001. What in the fuck has Madonna done in 20 years?
I mean, you might as well ask them like how many wives Perry Como had or something. Like you just go that far back if you're going to do that.
Was that the most difficult question?
Yes, easily.
I mean, a lot of these things were just like shoulder
I don't know.
The Adele, a lot of them, to be honest.
The Adele albums I thought was pretty. I have no fucking clue. What was the right answer to that?
4.
4? Is it only 4, really?
Yeah, she doesn't come out with albums very often like that. I mean, I think the one thing that did help is I was looking at the numbers on the medicine balls. There were not too many single-digit choices. There was a lot of double-digit choices. And I think really that was one, like, the reason Leo and Alyssa got it is just through the process of elimination. There was only like 3 single-digit answers, and they already had one they knew was correct. So it was a 50-50 chance on getting it, and they didn't get it the first time. So they swapped it, and it was the right answer. So they just process of elimination.
Guess how old Madonna is.
Oh, she's in her 60s. She's like
64.
61.
Rob wins.
Okay. She's older than
64?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, Madonna was like huge in like 86 or 87 with the song Like a Virgin. Like
Come
she
on,
was
dog.
Like,
That's
dude.
so long ago.
I was 3 when that song came out, okay? Like we're talking 35 plus years when she was culturally relevant. So that's why I'm saying, like, somebody in their 50s designed these questions because, like, Adele, I understand. Adele is still in the pop culture lexicon. Madonna has not been relevant in over 20 years. What the fuck are you doing?
They're trying to really expand their demographics, I guess. I don't know. It's bizarre. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. How do you feel about trivia being a deciding factor for an elimination? That's a skill that they've decided to use to determine. Before. I know, but I'm saying, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think that they? Are you okay with that? Do you not like that?
It's kind of a critical skill on the show at this point.
Yeah, I'm fine with it as long as it's combined with some kind of a physicality, and that's what they did here. And when they've done it in the past, it was, if you remember the one with Smashley, where they had to do the trivia on the seasons of the challenge, they had to do a physical piece of it too.
Yeah.
As long as trivia is not the sole piece of the elimination, I'm fine. If you're going to do it, you've got to add some kind of a physicality piece to it to make it fair, because somebody could be really smart and just blow through it in 20 seconds. You have to add an X factor to even the score, and I think they did that here, so I'm fine with it.
I'm going to have to jump out of here in a little bit, so I did want to talk before we go. With this men's side now, it's basically just a bunch of jabronis and Tyson, right? Like, I mean, Colin was pretty clearly the second best male, so he's gone. And we've got Danny, who we think should be solid, but he hasn't really done anything yet. And everybody else, it's like Ben, Dom, Enzo, David, Leo. Like,
you know what Danny's done on this season? Talk about Kiki. That's what he's done,
and he's not gone last, which is somewhat of an accomplishment.
That's an accomplishment.
That's it. Like, if I'm them, I'm trying to vote in Tyson every time. Like, just get him out of here. And then if we get him out of here, like, it's the Brady Bunch or the Bad News Bears of guys.
I mean, if they get rid of Tyson, you could tell me Enzo won, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
I mean, you could tell me that now, honestly.
I don't know that you can tell me that now. As long as Tyson's in the final, it would be very hard to pick against Tyson.
That was something that I was going to bring up earlier. Do you think there's an awareness amongst the cast members how much of a joke the finals are? Do you think they're aware of this, or do you think that they think this is going to be some type of competitive competition? Because I think it's probably the latter.
I think they think it's going to be mixed both
ways. Like, some will definitely know. Some of them will watch recent seasons of the show and be like, okay, these things are not that competitive, and then other people might not. Yeah, and other people will just know what their agent told them about how this is the biggest physical competition show ever, and yada yada. And they're like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon. So I think it goes both ways. But I definitely think. I mean, again, I think in either direction, just so he's not continuously winning missions, and you have. Like, it's more of an even playing field in that regard. I think we should be trying to vote him in pretty much every time. As a guy, guys, obviously, the women are very different.
The way these finals are now, if I could lose 30 pounds, which I'm about to start doing, like, I could win one of these finals because I would know just to set cruise control for 90% of it and then do max effort on the last leg. I mean, that's how you win now. That's how it works.
Dude, I think so. If we did power rankings right now for the men, let's talk through this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Would we all be in agreement that Tyson is number one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just asking.
If you think anything else, you're an idiot. Just for the record.
who would you have as second? Because I think I have a pretty good idea of who I would have second.
With Kylan gone,
Danny.
You have to do Danny.
Does. And then David would be third.
Who?
David would probably be third.
Yeah, he's still
David
around,
Alexander.
He's still around.
Who else is it, bro?
What? Dude, I think I have Dom second. I think I have Dom second.
You have Dom second?
Yeah, dude.
I think I'd have David ahead of him. I think there's just physical limitations with Dom that the other people don't have.
David hasn't been on the show.
So what?
There's so many people that are like not on the show anymore that still have more screen time than him.
Carly won a season and she was barely featured
overall.
in her season.
Well, I mean, there's a difference there, Devin. I think there's some. If we just show up to a mission, who do I think has a good chance of winning? Is a lot different.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about like who we think is going to win.
Who
that's
we think's
what we're
going to
talking
win?
about.
Oh, that's a different question.
One, but I still don't even know. I'm not even still that. He's just so far ahead of everybody else that there's at a certain point you wonder to what degree that comes back to bite him. I mean, after him, I guess I could see where you're going with Dom. Then.
You know what I think's going to wind up happening is TJ's been very cagey with his language. He's like, this is going to qualify you to run my final. There could be 20 there. I mean, let's say if we're assuming there's 11 episodes, which is what we've heard, and 11 is going to be the final, it would not shock me if there's only 8 slots in the final, but there's 11 people or something like that qualify, and they do a purge and something janky happens and Tyson doesn't make the final. Like, I could totally
How would there be 11
like
people left? I think we'll get to where it's 8.
Well, no, there might be 12 people, but let's say of those 12 people, only 11 of them have 5K. So you have to have 5K to run the final, and so they do a purge to say, okay, we're going to do a purge right now, and only 8 slots. So you've got to be one of the top 4 people, and if you don't become one of the top 4 people, even though you're qualified to run the final, you don't actually get to run the final. Like, I could see something really janky ass happening there.
2 things that I definitely want us to touch on. One, let's cross someone off. Who are 2 people, 1 man and 1 woman that we definitely think will. We don't think really have a chance to win.
At this point, Devin,
I think everyone has more than a 10% chance of winning. I really do. I don't think there's anyone, because like these finals suck. On this guy, so we have one guy who's good. Everybody else is a complete hypothetical, and it leans more towards bad, to be honest.
We've already crossed off the people that should be like Cachet should be crossed off. She's not.
We already did. I really don't even think. I really it's going to be.
We're out of people we can cross off.
I don't think David can. I think David has a pretty low chance. I just don't think that they would do that.
They've hidden people in the edit before.
Not like this. Not to this extent. It would be completely unprecedented.
I mean, so for one, again, this show is unprecedented. We don't know who's editing it. We don't.
No, it's not. We've said that, dude. Like, there's no way.
You've said that. You're the one who says that. I think it is completely unprecedented. We don't know what the production department of the show is, what their motivations are. Like, that's completely unknown. So there's that. I mean, we've seen, again, there has been people who have been pretty hidden in the edit before. Jordan in Dirty 30 was very hidden in the edit at the beginning of the season. Cara Maria and Vendetta said multiple points throughout the season where she was barely involved. I know this is a completely different situation.
We're 75. We're like 80% of the way through the season.
I think that I think he still has a chance. I just do. I think from a competitive standpoint, from just the fact that, again, we don't know how they're going to be editing the show. We just don't. Like, I think there's a chance.
Okay. Let's talk about this. What do we think the twist is going to be next week? I have a guess. I'd love to hear from the two of you.
Individuals?
I think they're freezing the pairs.
I think I don't think they're freezing the pairs. I thought about that, but that would be such a radical change, dude. Like, I thought it would be so out there.
They did it on All Stars too. They went from an individual game to freezing pairs when they'd been switching pairs around the whole season up to that point.
Yeah, it's just I don't think that will happen. I would. Okay.
I think it's one or the other. They're either freezing the pairs or this thing's going all individual. It's one of the two. They're going to go all War of the Worlds 1 on it. It's one of those two options.
I think it's going individual.
Yeah.
Which honestly, at this point, is the right decision, because people like Danny now actually need to perform, because they're getting... I mean, Danny is literally... He might be doing some political stuff, but it doesn't appear that way. All Danny does is talk about Kiki on the show, and maybe that's the edit they're giving him, but he's giving it to him. But there are some people that have just done jack shit on this show, and they're either going to have to win or get involved now if they go individual.
Okay, guys, I do have to jump off. I'm just going to jump on mute and turn my video off.
All right, mute and turn off your camera.
I will talk to you guys later.
We'll catch you later, Rob.
All right, what else do we want to talk about?
What did we think of Sarah wanting to go in to get her 5K, knowing that she had Tyson as her partner? Do we really think she would do that, or was that just supposing as part of the show?
I think based off of the edit, what they gave to us, there was a conversation that took place between her and Dom where she asked to go in. Mm-hmm. Do I think that's a good idea? I think it's way too soon to do that.
I agree.
I think you just wait around and see what happens. You could stumble into one of these. I mean, Dom and Cayla won this week, right? You know, no one would have guessed that they would have been people that would have won a mission. And I think that kind of is another reason for me why I didn't really care for this mission. You know, like who the fuck knows who would have won this? You know, it was completely random. And you could get another one of these as you go throughout the season. So I don't think that's a good idea for any of these people at this point.
It's a terrible idea. It's also why Wes's decision on, Total Madness, even though I loved it because it gave us the Bananas West elimination and bringing that whole story of a decade to a full circle loop, it just was like all these people were just so desperate to go in to get skulls, and they were worried about not getting one. And the reality is as long as the season's going, like everybody was going to get a chance to get a skull, period. They weren't going to volunteer to go in at the last second if you already had a skull. Like, it's the same thing here. Like, you're going to stumble into one.
Yeah, and I think that's even like a little bit more of a different situation, because in Total Madness, the only way you could make it to the final is if you won an elimination. Here, winning an elimination doesn't even do that for you unless you go in against someone that has money. But there's also the opportunity to make the final if you win a mission. And I think with this many chances left and with the numbers dwindling as much as they are, your chances are only getting better to be able to make that happen. Mm-hmm. Especially because as we get towards the end of the season, can't you see people that have already won missions potentially not giving their best effort in a mission if there's someone who isn't qualified yet, but someone that you think you could beat in a final, right? So if Tyson, or who would be a good example?
I mean, Tyson already said that in this episode. He's like, I've qualified. It's time to back off here a little bit, let these people fight it out. Like, it seemed like Tyson was taking that approach this episode. And that's why I think he would get frustrated if Sarah wanted to get thrown in because he was her partner to get her money.
Because can't you see if it's one of the last episodes before the final and Enzo still hasn't qualified for the final, can't you see Tyson wanting Enzo to win a mission so he can be part of the final and then potentially get someone out of the house who's a stronger player? That would definitely be a deal that you could see someone like that making.
Oh, I would see Tyson making that deal every day of the week. Yeah.
So I just think that there's going to be way too many chances for people to still get in. I don't think I don't know. I don't get why there's such an urgency especially with this much time left.
I think a lot of it is just the psychology of being in the challenge house. You're bored. You can't watch TV. You can't read books. All you do is sit around and talk politics, eat and play cards and work out. So I think it causes people psychologically to big brain it instead of just taking a step back. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people hate on like the Kennys and the Johnny Bananas of the world, but they're the ones that actually sit back and realize what's really going on these shows. And they're the ones that are able to keep calm and make wise decisions. When you try to big brain stuff, you wind up working yourself out of the game. When in reality, if you are able to just take that step back, see what's going on, you wouldn't make some of these people wouldn't make the decisions they do on the challenge.
Yeah, patience is key. I would honestly say that that's one of the more valuable traits that you can have in the show. And a lot of the time, that's why rookies on the main show, the ones that do as well as they do, right? Because they're patient, they know not to try and push the envelope, and the ones that make big waves are often the ones that go out within the first few episodes.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things, we've talked about this before. It's like, why don't these rookies band together like on SLA and create an alliance and work all the veterans out? Well, it's because if you're a rookie and you start making too much noise, you're immediately thrown on the chopping block by, the rest of the house. Like the smart people, like you just said, you're better off being quiet, laying low, and you make your big move either when your back's against the wall, like Steve Menke, which he bought himself a couple weeks out of that, or you make your big move when it's impactful towards the end of the game. Like, you can go back to Rivals 1. Leroy and Mike stayed completely off the radar the entire season, and then they won. I mean, granted, they, the mission they won, CT got screwed, but they won the mission that counted and they were in the final. So like, there are ways for you to strategically get to the end as a rookie, and it's usually by being patient and waiting to make your move at the right time.
So speaking of chopping blocks, at the beginning of the episode, we saw Tyson, Angela, and Kylan talk about how they needed to really emphasize with some of the other members of the house that if they're the ones to throw in a winner to elimination, they will then be public enemy number one. Mm-hmm. Do you think that we will see that next week with Cayla and Dom? Do you think that they will be in some type of jeopardy now that they've broken the seal? They're the first people to throw in a winner. Does this matter for them?
I don't think it matters for them because Tyson didn't want Dom there in the first place, and Cayla she's doing really well. Like, it's actually surprising to me how well Cayla is navigating this game. I think they're in the same position regardless of this move or not. You know what I mean? Like, they just feel like they're at the top of no one's priority list. So they had a no-lose situation here by making the decision they did. The only losing part of it we've kind of already discussed. It's like, you saw the elimination, you saw who they're going against. Logic would dictate that you wouldn't make that move.
Yeah, dude, I wouldn't have done that.
It worked out. I mean, it worked out for them, but they got really damn lucky. That's the deal. They got really lucky.
It was bad process, good outcome. I think that's what it comes down to.
Sometimes you just stumble into it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain probability that Leo and Alyssa beat Kylan and Kira in that. I don't think it's greater than 50% by any means, but it just didn't seem like, once you go down there and you see what the elimination is, and you see who their competition would be, it just doesn't seem like the most wise decision. Let's talk about Leo.
I was about to bring this up.
Him wanting to go home. So,
oh my gosh, his girlfriend made me want to punch her through the screen. Like, I've never felt like I get that, like, whatever was going on, like maybe Leo did a poor job setting up leaving for this show to run their bars or whatever.
Would you be shocked if that happened?
No, because Leo seems more interested in cats than the show. So,
dude, it's so weird.
Yeah. Hold on. Can you filibuster for a minute? I got to answer a work text.
Yeah, I mean, his infatuation with cats is perplexing at this point. I don't know if we've ever seen a storyline quite like this on the show. His girlfriend said that he had to come home because there were problems that he could only solve. Something about credit card machines. I don't know, and that only he
The
would be
credit
able to
card
solve
machines
this.
went down, and so they did not make
How is this?
40 grand
How is
or
this a
something.
problem that only Leo can solve? This seems like something that you can just get in there and figure out. It's
If you don't panic and freak out, yes, this is something you can figure out. Trust me. I run a team of developers that deal with millions of dollars a year. And when shit goes wrong and you don't know what you're doing, you just sit down and figure it out, or you call somebody else you trust to help you figure it out. Like, you don't just sit around and bitch, you need to come home.
I don't get what changed for him to not want to go home, because it seems like he is now motivated to stick around the rest of the season. They didn't say explicitly, "Oh, this happened, I'm going to stay." Did something at home change? Did the credit card machine start working again? We have no idea. They almost kind of left it up to. They kind of almost left it up to the speech that Alyssa gave Leo as the catalyst to make him not want to go anywhere. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, realistically, I think what happened is Leo was leaving, and she said, "Hey, you can't just leave. This affects me." And then cooler heads prevailed, and I would assume Leo went to production and said, "Look, I am going to have to go home unless I can make these phone calls. And I don't want to go home." And I think this is where part of, they were talking about in the preseason stuff that a lot of the cast did not like how production handled a lot of things. I wonder if this could be part of it, where he's like, "Look, I'm out thousands of dollars from my business that could literally bankrupt my business. You've got to let me make some phone calls besides my girlfriend who's telling me what's going on." And so probably after he chilled out, got over that conversation, he probably was able to call somebody at home to sort it out. And that's why he was chill the rest of the episode. Because my thing is if he didn't settle this and he was, still running around, I think he would have been more frantic with everything had he not solved that situation back home before everything happened the rest of the episode. There's no way he just, "Well, I guess I'm out 40 grand. Oh, well."
From experience, let me tell you, that's not very pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I do want to shout out somebody. So if you're listening to this or
I know
watching
what you're
this on
say.
YouTube, one of our Discord members, Katie B, had the line of the maybe the year in our Discord. I audibly laughed out loud multiple times when I saw this comment. I'm about to laugh now. Sorry, I'm spitting all over the place. When Leo won the elimination, Katie B from our Discord said, "Sorry, Leo, your hot bitchy girlfriend is going to have to figure out the credit card machines."
Dude, she was like real aggressive about it.
I mean, no offense. I only saw 20 seconds of Leo's girlfriend and I wanted him to dump her. And I don't even like Leo. Like, she might be a pleasant person, but the way she wasn't even making eye contact with him when she was talking to him, the tone in her voice was just this entitled, bitchy attitude. And I hate to prejudge someone because I don't know her, but everything I saw on TV made me want to hate her.
So, I mean, she's definitely going to be on one of the next seasons, right?
If they have a Challenge USA X's season or a Challenge USA Rivals season or something, her attitude evoked everything that they would want in reality TV, especially on a Big Brother or Challenge situation.
We talked about the men's side before. Let's talk about the women's side. Now that Kira is gone and we have seemingly 3 episodes left before the final, how do you rank the remaining females? What is your prediction for the outcome of this season? Do you still have, or who do you have at the top of your list?
All right. Angela's number 1 and Cayla is the strong number 2. And then the rest of them are just, I don't think Sarah could she? I think you have to put Sarah 3, but I don't think she's going to win. Like the way that things are falling for her, she just looks like someone with a huge name and reputation, which she has. But like, what has she done to prove that she? I mean, I know we say anybody can fall into a win in these finals. That anything can happen, but like, there's no part of me that feels strongly she's going to win anymore. In preseason, I was all about Sarah's going to win this, but watching her over the course of the season, you have to put her 3 by default just because I can't see any of these other women. I mean, Alyssa, maybe you could slot in at 3, but I don't know.
I don't know. Anyone can win these. Anyone.
Yeah.
Except
I think
Anissa.
on the men's side, except Anissa, that's so true. That would take broken limbs and a lot of things for Anissa to win one of these at this point. Maybe 10 years ago, she could have stumbled into a team season win, but she's not going to win the way they do the show now. On the men's side, if Tyson doesn't make the final, even Leo could win this thing. And that's crazy. But that could happen. But if Tyson's in the final, I just can't see him losing because he's good at puzzles. He's easily the best physical competitor. So if Tyson's in the final, he's winning hands down. If he's not in the final, Dom could win, Leo could win, and I mean any of them could win.
I'm looking through my notes, seeing if there's anything else that we can talk about. Something that I feel like I've heard other people mention, and I think this episode, it really resonates with me, is there really isn't any house stuff that they show us. We don't get any of that at all. We pretty much get gameplay, strategy, mission, elimination. And that's all we get. And
people working out in the background. That's about it.
We don't know any of the type of relations that are happening, any lighthearted moments. Like, none of that has been shown. And I think that's definitely an interesting choice. And I think if they did sprinkle those in, obviously from our perspective, it would make it a better product. But I think that's definitely a dynamic that's been shortcoming to this point.
But I mean, they've done the same thing on Spies, Lies, and Allies and Double Agents and Total Madness. They've shown very little lightheartedness on those 3 seasons. It's a problem. It's one of the things we've complained about. I mean, they're just editing the show this way now. Other than the opening night cocktail party, All Stars is really the only show that they still show the cast having parties and having fun anymore.
Okay. Anything that we want to talk about before we get out of here? Are you good?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm still enjoying the season. I enjoyed last week's episode was probably the weakest, but it wasn't terrible. This one I liked more than I think you and Rob did. But I think the only other thing we should mention is Tyson talked about there were a lot of things they didn't show from this episode. And he's like, I can't blame anybody that would hate this episode because he's like, apparently Ben and Sarah were having a lot of disagreement steering this whole thing, and that alliance might be blowing up between the two of them.
Shocking.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Ben having disagreements with people. So, like, apparently there was other conflict that they just elected not to show. And he's like, they probably should have shown it, but it probably would have given away what was going to happen. So
I thought it was pretty interesting and funny how after Sarah and Tyson do not win the mission for this episode, on the day where Dom and Cayla decide who will go into elimination, Tyson just follows Sarah around the entire time, so she doesn't have the opportunity to speak with Dom, but seemingly she did because they showed it in a flashback.
Yeah, that's the Boston Rob move that got him voted out of Winners at War. If everybody stays at camp, nobody can talk and nothing will change.
I did enjoy how they edited the decision for Cayla and Dom this episode much more than the flashbacks that they've been doing, right? Because at this point in time, we have all the information. We know what's going into their thought process, and then they make the decision. And I feel like it gives us kind of a better reaction than they don't give us any of that content. They make the decision, and then they show us all the reasons why. I don't know. Yeah. I think it's a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I honestly thought going into the elimination that it was going to be Tyson and Sarah. Like, they really did a good job setting up different possibilities, because on paper, if you're going to take a big shot, to me, Tyson and Sarah, even though they probably win this elimination, that's the bigger shot to take. And Tyson already wants you out of the game. Sarah is indifferent, so like you have nothing to lose with that one. Whereas with Kyland and was it Kira he was with?
Yeah.
That one was a little more puzzling to me, because as far as I knew, I mean, Kyland did throw Dom in earlier, but they didn't seem to be like at war with each other, whereas Tyson was very clear that he wanted nothing to do with Dom.
I mean, Kira being she, had pretty much nothing going on this entire season. Her only storyline was her narrative with Cashel. And now that I think about it, Cache has pretty much not had a lot going on since Cinco left. The only episode where she did have a lot going on is when her and Tyson won a mission, and she had to be under the spotlight, but she wasn't very present at all on this episode.
No, and that's why I've said, like, you know, crossing her off is the right move, but like we should uncross. We're officially uncrossing Dominic. He's not crossed off anymore.
I think he could win. I might have him as a favorite over Tyson. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Tyson's still the favorite for me, but I think Dom is like right behind him.
I think until Tyson gets eliminated, it would be irresponsible to put anybody but Tyson as number one, because he's clearly the dominant person in the entire house. And so if he gets eliminated and you said you put Dominic one, I can't argue with it based on his edit. I mean, they made him look stupid in that one elimination, but aside from that, like, they're giving him a lot of screen time compared to, I mean, if you were to really add it up, for the men that are left on the show, Tyson's number one, and then if you're going by screen time, Dominic and Leo are 2 and 3. Ben doesn't get much screen time. Danny only gets screen time when he's talking about Kiki. Enzo has been pretty invisible except for last week. And who else is left? Kylan's gone. David, he's invisible. So, like, if you were to give me your top 3 rankings of Tyson, Dom, and Leo, I can't argue with it, because Dom and Leo have gotten extremely more screen time than the rest of the men left.
Behind Tyson, Dominic does have the most confessionals. Mm-hmm. Overall, throughout the season, Tyson has the most, then Alyssa, then Sarah, then Dominic and Justine. I wasn't aware that Justine had that much content.
I wasn't either. But see, that's the thing too. That's why I even think that if we were to power rank this right now on the female side, I would go Angela, Cayla, and then Alyssa over Sarah. Because even though Sarah's gotten a lot of screen time, they're putting a lot of focus on Alyssa, and she's not terribly involved in a lot of the political conversation, but they keep finding ways to put her on screen.
I would just be so shocked if David Alexander won. There are 7 people that have been eliminated from the game that have more confessionals than David Alexander.
I would be shocked,